idiot! Where did you learn how to drive?
I will sue you in court!
A rainy night. A tiny traffic mistake. A whistle in the dark. A cop stops a woman, and he slaps her. She won't stay quiet. She takes him to court. Then come the late-night calls, a missing piece of video, and a city that starts to shake. Watch till the end. Every minute matters. If you enjoy intense, real lifestyle suspense stories, please subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. Where are you watching from? Comment your city name below. Rain had already turned the city into a mirror by the time she reached the flyover. It was early evening, but the street lamps had switched on, and each bulb shook a pale halo into water pooled in every broken dip. Horns wrote a jagged line through the air. Wipers thumped. She kept both hands on the wheel and followed the white lane mark as if it was the last clean rule left in the world. And when the broken spine of a pothole opened ahead of her like a mouth, she edged her car to the right, just a little, just enough to miss it. A whistle rose from somewhere close. The man with the white gloves walked out from the small island of cones. He put up one hand like a slow wall. She stopped. The rain made a band across his face shield. His jaw worked under it. "Step out," he said. She rolled the window down instead. Water blew into her lap. "What did I do?" she asked. "Lane discipline," he said. He spoke fast, as if he had repeated the same sentence so many times it had pushed all softness out of his voice. "And your rear plate light is not on." "It's on," she said, and I swerved for the pothole. "If I didn't, my wheel would break." "You didn't stop before the white line," he added, as if he needed 3 stones to build a small wall. Her chest tightened. "Sir, I stopped. That line is washed off. It's hard to see." A motorbike hissed by her left side and brushed his hip. He didn't flinch. The other officer behind him kept his hands in the pockets of his raincoat and stared at the wet ground like he had learned to be a shadow. "License," he said. She already had it in her hand. Her fingers trembled, not from fear but from the cold and the unfairness that had crept up on her skin and now would not leave. "How much?" she asked. That hung in the air like a wrong word. His eyes lifted. The rain was a curtain. Behind it, some men under a tea-stall roof watched this exchange as if it was a film. A phone camera lifted. Noah hides that now. It goes up without thought, and the lens takes everything. "Step out," he said again, softer, and then he leaned in more than she expected, and a wet glove took the license from her hand with a quick roughness that did not belong in this world. She opened the door. Water soaked her shoes. He stood so close she could see the thinning hair by his temples and the small nick under his ear that had not healed right. He reached into the car, his shoulder against her, switched off the engine, pulled the keys, and pocketed them. "Why are you doing this?" she said. "It was a small thing. We can talk." "You people think you can talk your way out of anything," he said, and then he did something that even he looked like he could not believe he had done as soon as his hand fell. He slapped her. She felt it before she heard it. A sting that started on her skin and then ran deep like a shock through bone. The world turned very narrow in that moment. The rain on his uniform sleeve, the smell of wet rubber, the taste of her own breath. For a heartbeat, there was no traffic, no noise at all, only the thin whistle of air in her ears. Someone gasped. The phone camera had it. The officer took one step back. His helper took one step forward. She brought her hand to her cheek and found there was heat there that did not feel like heat. It was an ache and also the bruised taste of shame. She looked at him straight. "You can't do that," she said. "You are obstructing," he said, too fast, too loud, a new script now, creating public nuisance. "Come to the station." He turned to write, or to pretend to write. The rain threaded his notebook with tiny lines. She took a breath and pulled her voice back into her chest where it could not tremble. She looked at the man with the camera, then at the woman behind him with a pink umbrella and wet sandals who had watched all of it. "Please keep that video," she said. The woman nodded. Her lips pressed together like she was holding something bitter back. At the station, the desk officer did not look up when she walked in. He had tea balanced on a small metal saucer and watched the door as if he could not see what came in. She stood and explained. The man with the raincoat came in behind her. He put the keys on the table, slow. "I want to file a complaint," she said. About what? The desk man asked without a flicker in his eyes, as if he had not heard such a sentence before. About him, she said, and for the first time she said his name because it was on his badge, and names bring shape to what was loose and wild. Sub-Inspector Suraj Yadav. He slapped me on the road for a small lame mistake. The desk man put down his tea. He took a form but did not fill it. Suraj went around to the other side of the counter like he lived there, which he did. She refused to cooperate, Suraj said. Abused me. Tried to record me on duty. We will file against her. She felt anger pour into her in a straight line. Recordings are not illegal, she said. What you did is illegal. Madam, the desk man said in a voice that tried to close the subject and send it down a drain. Please sit. We will see. She did not sit. She took out her phone, which was wet and slick, and called Mira. Behind her, someone laughed. She stared at the wall and read each faded poster about rights and duties until the words settled into her eyes like the marks left by old nails. Mira came in a half hour later, a small woman in a dark shirt with a canvas bag, dry hair, dry eyes, a mouth that knew what to say. Ma'am is filing an FIR for assault, Mira said to the desk man with a tone that did not fight. It just did not bend. They took her statement. It was broken by sighs and by phones ringing and by the rain hammering a little louder. Suraj spoke from the side and said she was making it up. Mira asked about body cam footage. He said his body cam did not work in water. Mira took notes. They went back out into the wet dark, and the night tried to push them down the steps like a hand on their backs. At home, the apartment smelled of old books and towel. She sat on the couch with the lights off so that the city could sit with her. The left side of her face pulsed. She opened her phone and sent the video from the woman with the pink umbrella to herself, to Mira, to a small group of people she trusted. One of them posted it on a page that was not hers. By midnight, it had run through the city like fire through dry grass. People made their own rage. People made jokes too. Both spread well. Her name was not on the clip, but someone who had been at the tea stall wrote it in the comments. Her office, which did numbers and maps for other people, messaged to ask if she was okay and to tell her not to reply to any press. At 2 a.m, her phone rang. No number. She answered with a soft, tired hello, a breath, and then a voice not quite a whisper and not quite a hiss, a voice that rested in that small space where contempt lives. Withdraw, it said. Make a compromise. You won't sleep else. The line went dead. She sat up. Her heart threw her awake. She walked to the window and looked down at the wet street. A dog shook itself in the light. A cyclist passed, a plastic sheet over his head like a sail. Nothing else moved. In the morning, she took photos of her cheek because the red had turned to a shadow shape and she did not trust memory. Mira messaged. High Court motion for body cam files and junction CCTV at 6 points. She nodded at the phone like her friend could see her through the glass. She ate a banana and tasted cardboard. When she put water to boil, the doorbell rang. A boy stood there, thin, hair stuck to his head, a bag with a courier sticker. Envelope for Nisha, he said. That's me, she said. No return address. Inside, a small memory card, wrapped in a plastic. Someone had written in neat hand, for court. She stared at it for a long time. She did not own a card reader. She held it like it was a small seed from a dark plant, then put it in a matchbox and slid it behind the books on the second shelf. By afternoon, her presence had become a job. She moved through corridors with light that flickered and through rooms where air was pushed by slow fans. In court, the judge looked over thin glasses and said, "We will not tolerate violence by any state agent." He asked for the full raw data of that night. The city's lawyer said the body cams often fail in weather. The judge asked if the weather is always this useful. The city's lawyer did not enjoy the laughter. He tried to be angry, but it did not fit the day. Outside court, a man leaned near the tea counter and watched her with a smile that did not reach his eyes. He was in plain clothes, but could have been mistaken for a uniform if the air he carried had a sound. He lifted his hand, and you could see the silver band on his wrist, a big, simple thing. She turned away as if he was a stray dog, and she had learned not to make eye contact. He followed her with his eyes anyway. An old reporter she had last seen in a seminar about data transparency was there, drinking tea that steamed into the damp air. He had a patient face and eyes that held too many small sadnesses. "I saw it," he said. "You know they won't let this be simple." "I didn't think it was simple," she said. "Not about that slap," he said. "About what he is inside. Traffic is a river where money runs without a bank. You touch that, you will find more hands." He nodded at her cheek. "And they don't believe cameras see them." "Who is they?" she asked. He laughed. "People who wash their hands till the skin wears thin. People who sign without ink. People who will stand behind the man who hits so they can stay soft. You chose a fight. Now don't let them move your ground." When she reached home the second night, the chalk mark was on her door. A tiny cross near the bottom where only someone who bent down would see it. She stayed for a full minute with her hand on the wood. The lock looked normal. The peephole showed the stair. Only the quiet reached in from the hall. She pushed the door open and stood at the threshold and listened. Fridge hum. A slow drip in the sink that she had never noticed until this life started. She bought a small camera online and fitted over her door on the inside. She asked the neighbor's boy, who fixed phones after school, to help set it up. He moved his hands quick. He did not look at her face too long. He told her it would send a clip to her phone if there was movement in front of her door. That night, at 4, her phone buzzed. A man in a cap walked past her door. He did not knock. He did not pause. His left wrist had that same bright metal band. He went down the stairs. He knew where the camera was, but did not care. She began to do what she knew how to do. She filed right to information requests for towing records from the junction where she had been stopped. She asked for citations issued by Suraj Yadav in the past 6 months. She asked for lists of fines canceled. She asked for logs of CCTV cameras on the expressway that joined that junction like an artery. She tracked, in a notebook, license numbers of vehicles that came up again and again with no outcomes. She called a client who ran a logistics company and asked if she could sit in his operations room for one evening to watch the city's movement on screens that were not hers. She learned the rhythm of that corner where she had been slapped. How the tow truck with the chipped blue paint parked at 9. How men with no uniforms loaded bikes with a dance that was both harsh and graceful. How a silver SUV with films rolled slow and never stopped. How 2 men in plain clothes stood back and checked their phones. How an old woman with a stack of cheap raincoats arrived at 11 and left at 3. She wrote it down like it was a story she had to tell herself, so she would not forget what time looked like. On the 3rd morning, she received a call from a number she did not know. "Meet me," the voice said. It was Suraj. She did not say anything for a second. She did not even move. "No," she said. "At the tea stall near the bridge," he said. "In 20 minutes. She took her bag. Mira said on the phone, "Don't go alone." She went alone, but she sent her location. The rain had slowed and finally felt human. The tea stall man wiped the bench with his hand. Suraj stood in the shadow as if he had grown from the same wood. He had shaved. His eyes had not slept. "I broke something," he said before she could speak. "You did," she said. "You broke what should keep you from doing what you did." "Why did you call me?" "Because you're the only one making them bring light," he said. He did not look at her. He looked at the road and at a small boy pushing a cart with plastic dolls that had still not learned rain. "You're part of it," she said. "You do what they want." He swallowed. His throat moved like it hurt. "Do you know what it's like to wear this uniform and feel your own hands are not yours?" he said softly. "Do you know what it's like to have your name on paper, but your voice in someone else's pocket?" "I know what it's like to have your hand on my face," she said. "I did a wrong thing," he said. "I won't defend it. But if you keep this in court, if the judge orders the junction feeds for the night of May 21st and the body cams from that week, not just that night, you will see why they are calling you in the night." She stared. "What happened on May 21st? "A black SUV jumped the barrier near the flyover," he said, and his voice shrank. "It hit a fruit cart. It moved like it did not know the world had people in it. We chased. I took the number. I saw the man who climbed out and made the call. He wears a silver band on his wrist. He spoke 5 words, just 5, like keys. We were told to file an entry that a cart fell on its own. We were told to forget the number. That number belongs to a government guest house. I won't meet you again," she said. "If this is real, then send me proof. But don't use me to buy yourself grace." He nodded, and a small line of water fell from his sleeve, as if his uniform was finally letting the rain out. "I sent you something," he said. "Be careful who you trust." On the news the next morning, the anchor spoke as if she had been waiting for this story since she was a child. Sub-Inspector Surajadov, found dead in his car on the old highway, a collision with a light pole, a punctured tire, a seatbelt that was not used. He was off duty. He had left no note. A photograph showed him smiling with one hand on a motorcycle, clean, no rain. The internet opened the gates in her direction. It always finds someone to chew in times like this. "You pushed him," some profiles said. "He hit you. Now look," others wrote, as if life was a scale so neat that one slap could bring one death as compensation. The phone rang again late, and someone said, "Leave it now. You got your show." She took the matchbox from behind the books and pushed the small card into a borrowed reader with hands that shook for the first time since that night. The video opened to a view, not quite level, the chest of a man, the edge of zip, rain like needles. A horn, a woman crying for God. Then motion, the jerk of a body moving, the light from someone's backlight, the dark shape of a cart skewed across a lane like a broken leg. A fruit seller kneeling in the rain, his hands to his head, oranges float away like lanterns in a river. A black SUV sits at an angle, its number plate covered with mud except for 2 digits, a 9 and a 7. A man stands near the driver's side with a phone to his ear. The silver band shines when he lifts his wrist to scratch his neck. He says into the phone with a calm that does not belong to the place, called DCP Comet. "Tell him Bhaskar is at Shaun. Tell him we need no file." The body cam lunges. You hear Suraj breathe like he ran upstairs. His voice is raw. "Sir, we need to take statements. A man is hurt." You don't see the other man's face because the angle is wrong, and because sometimes it is not allowed for us to see what hurts us. Not yet. You will write that a vendor fell, the silver wrist says. You will write no injury. You will take the cart off the road, and you will leave 15 minutes before the press arrives. You will take care, and then softer, so only the mic caught it. You know where your boy studies. The frame shakes. A small sound escapes that is not a word. The fruit seller lifts his head. Blood runs with water and becomes pale and then dirt. Nisha felt the old air in her house go thin. She paused the video and went to the sink and ran water over her hands as if they had touched something dirty when they had not. When she came back, she watched the rest. It was short. It did not show who drove. It did not show whose hand was inside which pocket. But it was enough to say that the night had not let go of her because it had nowhere else to place its weight. She sent the clip to Mira, who did not write back with words, just with the next step laid out like a small bridge. Petition to preserve and unseal the guest house entry logs for May. Petition for audio of radio calls from that night. Her name under oath on a new paper. At the next hearing, the city's lawyer tried to move the air in the room with his hands, but air is poor at obeying men like him. The judge watched the clip. The judge watched the rain run down the lens. He watched the wrist. He murmured, "Comet," and wrote something that caused 3 men near the back to leave the room and 1 man to enter with a file held to his chest like a child. Internal Affairs sent a woman to meet Nisha at the court steps. Her name was Riya, and her hair was pulled back so tight it looked like a thought held too long. "They will come to your door," she said, not unkind. "They will tell you we already investigated and found nothing. They will try to make you think you are tired." "I am tired," Nisha said. Riya smiled. It did not reach her eyes, but it went near. "We all are. That is how they win. Do you have other copies?" 3, Nisha said. "One in my lawyer's office. One with a reporter. One with my friend's mother who forgets things, which is good." "Keep doing boring things," Riya said. "File papers. Don't meet them in corners alone. If you see something on fire, walk around it." Nisha walked home with a new feeling that was not quite fear and not quite calm. When she reached her door, the chalk mark was gone. The floor had been mopped in the hall. The air smelled of cheap fennel. Her camera had no new clips. At 2 in the morning, the same call came again. The breathing first, then a low voice that carried someone else's power. "You won't prove anything," it said. "Cases rot. People forget. Your father died, remember? You forget that too. Her throat closed. The wind came right into her bones. She had not told anyone about her father to any stranger. He had died when she was 19, a hit and run on the old highway. No one was found. 3 photos of him that felt like doors she could not open now leaned against the wall in her room. She hung up. She called Mira. She did not cry until she heard her friend's voice, and then she let the tears run like they were a job too. In the morning, she added to her petition an old file number that had sat in a drawer in her mother's house for years. 239/2009. Untraced. A line in Hindi that said he had crossed the road in rain and fallen. She put that paper next to the video. She did not say why. She just let paper speak to paper. When DCP Comet walked into court, he was careful with his face. He had the kind of face that had practiced softness in mirrors, the way men like him do to take the edge off the room. He said what sounded right. He said he would never allow brutality, that body cams were being upgraded, that harsh weather had played a role. He did not say his driver wore jewelry. He did not say he knew the guest house logs like a man knows his own last name. Mira was simple. She put the clip out and let it play. She asked for Comet's phone location the night of May 21st. She asked for Bosker's posting. She asked if the court could order preservation of the tire marks analysis from the pole where Suraj died. She asked nothing else. She did not raise her voice or move her hands. She was the tide that comes whether or not you beg it not to. The judge played with his pen and then wrote a new order. He asked that the guest house guard be brought the next day. He asked that the tow truck logs be presented. He asked that Riyaz's unit be given keys to the junction's CCTV room. He asked for Suraj's phone to be placed in a bag and sealed and open in court. That evening, Nisha went to buy milk, and a bike passed close to her, and a hand slapped the milk bag from her fingers. The packet burst, and white went into brown and made a small cloud. The rider did not look back. In the puddle, the street lamp made a shape like a broken moon. She felt her hands make fists. A boy from the grocery came out and handed her another packet without a word. Kindness is a small thing and a large thing, depending on the night. She said thank you and took a long breath that tasted like wet concrete and smoke. The guard from the guest house was small, and his mustache tried to be bigger than him. He looked at the ceiling when he spoke. He said yes, a black SUV had gone in late that night. Yes, a man named Bhaskar had called ahead. Yes, a man with a smooth head and a heavy ring on his right hand had gone in with it. Yes, he had been told not to log it, which is why there was no entry, but he was old and had told his son in anger anyway, and his son had told his wife, which is why he remembered it so well. The court smiled for the first time since this began. The judge did not show it, but his eyes were a little kinder when he looked at Nisha. They opened Suraj's phone in the court. The last call was to her, which pushed a small soft pain into her chest that she had not prepared for. The second last was to a number saved as Bhaskar. The messages were few, one of them with a location pin near the Shaun flyover, and one of them a photo of a child in a yellow shirt with the words he had sent to her echoing back, "You know where your boy studies." That night, Riya knocked on her door. The hall smelled of smoke and oil and the damp that never leaves the stair. She stood with a bag and paper she did not show to anyone else. "I may need you to sign a statement," she said. "But more than that, I need you to be alert. You didn't know it when you started, but you put your foot on a string that runs through rooms you don't see." "I didn't start it," Nisha said. "He did." "I know," Riya said. "It's all the same string." They drove to the junction. Riya had the keys. 2 men stood by the door to the CCTV room. They were polite and useless. Riya waved the order, and they let her pass. Inside, the air was heavy with the hum of machines. Screens showed roads day and night. On one, goats wandered across a highway. On another, a woman in red ran after a bus that had moved 4 inches and might as well have been 4 miles. "Which one is the bridge cam?" Nisha asked. Riya pointed. "This one," she said. "And we will need footage from here for the night your father died, too." Nisha nodded. It felt like they had found a hole in the wall and were ready to push through, even if it scraped. They copied 3 days of files, compressed and big and slow. The man in the other room coughed like the dust had taught him to do it. By the next week, the city had had to pretend to be a city. The minister who had visited the guest house for 2 hours on the night of May 21st put out a statement saying he had been home with his mother, who was ill. Someone found a picture of his mother at a rally in another town on that night. The minister's driver, Bhaskar, did not come to work the day after his name was spoken in court. His home had a lock on it, a lock that had seen too many clever hands and still closed. DCP Kamat applied for leave. The leave was not given. Internal Affairs sat in his office until he had to share his chair. On a Sunday, when the city was softer, when the air smelled of wet iron and fried bread, Nisha walked to the place where her father had been hit all those years ago. A new flyover had come up a little to the side. The old tea stall was gone. A small shrine with orange paint had grown in its place. She stood where the old road curved, and that curve fit into her like a memory of a path in a dark room. She took out a small paper, the old file number, and held it in her hand like a name. Men came and went. No one looked at her. That was good. She did not want to be seen as a daughter or as a woman or as a file. She wanted to be a point on a map waiting for a line. On Monday, the judge called her to the stand. Her palms were damp. Under the wood of the witness box, someone had carved a name and then scratched it out. She told the court what she had seen. She told it slow. She did not add anything that would sweeten it or make it break hearts. She spoke like she would speak to a child she did not want to scare, but she did not hide the parts that cut. She said he slapped her. She said the uniform had been made thin by other people's hands. She said she wanted him suspended, and she wanted the man with the silver band to tell her whether he slept at night. "Do you want anything else?" the judge asked, a small, tired man with a pen that had left a small blue mark on his fingers. "Yes," she said. "I want the old case reopened. I want you to see if the tire marks from then had ever been matched to the SUVs that moved through that guest house that month." The courtroom breathed in. You could feel belief struggle to come to the surface like a fish. You could feel someone in the back pick up a phone and then put it down as if the old habits had lost their shape. "Granted," the judge said. In the weeks after that, boring things did their work. A lab match patterns. A vendor who had left the city for 3 years returned because his brother sent him a ticket, and in his pocket, he had kept the fear that lived in his throat that May. It came out in words, and in a small sketch of a wrist with a ring drawn too thick because he had not learned how to draw light. Bhaskar was found in a town by the river, his face hidden by a cloth he used as a mask. He did not go quietly. He tried to make his face into a man who had only ever driven. But drivers hold maps in their eyes. When Riyad placed the photo from the body cam next to his arm on a table, and his wrist did not know how to not be his wrist, the room went silent. As for Suraj, he could not be in any room, but he was in every one. His mother sat in the back row in a faded sari and stared not at the judge but at the wall behind him, as if she could see her son on it if she tried hard enough. The court granted her a seat. The court kept the cameras at a distance. The court said his death needed more eyes than a policeman at the scene. The angle of the broken light pole and the marks on the road told a story that did not match the first story, and the second one had names in it. By the time monsoon pulled away like a slow curtain, 3 men had gone to a jail where the light is not soft. One of them was Kamat. He went in with his chin up, as if his neck could carry the shame for his soul, and it could not. The minister sat in a house and held his mother's hand and spoke of stress and lies. The driver Bhaskar wore a white shirt to court and did not look up. He did not look at Nisha. That felt like a gift he gave himself. The slap still lived on the internet, not as her worst day now, but as a door to something bigger. People still argued under it. People like to argue. But under their shouts, the file numbers moved. One morning at the court steps, with the rain gone and the earth smelling like new bread, a man with a camera asked Nisha if she felt revenge. She wanted to say no. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to say many things. She finally said, "I feel like I can breathe." "Do you forgive him?" the man asked. "Which him?" she said. "Yadav," he said. She thought for a long second. Forgiveness is a good word until it stands next to an act. It shrinks. It swells. It does not sit still. "I don't forgive the slap," she said. "I forgive the part of him that tried to fix what he could not bear anymore. My revenge is that everyone who used him will sit on a bench and wait for their name to be called, and they will not have a phone in their pocket when they wait." That night, when the city had shrunk to lights and small hungry sounds, she walked back to the flyover. The cones were there, and men in new vests, and a different officer who spoke quietly to an old man about U-turns. She stood under the light and watched the rainless sky. The lane mark had been painted fresh. The pothole had been filled. A boy in a blue shirt who sold flowers came by and asked if she wanted one. She took a small marigold and kept it in her hand and did not know what to do with it. So she left on the railing where the slap had landed like a sentence once. The next day, she woke and her cheek did not ache and no phone called in the night, and there were only 3 emails to answer, and they were about work. In the afternoon, she went to see Suraj's mother with Riya. The small home smelled of cumin and dust. A child watched a cartoon with the sound low. The woman held Nisha's hand and said nothing for a long while. Words do not come easy in rooms where a man who earned the money is gone. When she did speak, it was simple. He made mistakes, she said, but he didn't leave a hole in the road. Others did. Nisha nodded. She left a small envelope on the table, not with money because the city had promised to pay that now, but with a photo of a fresh line on the flyover, white and straight in the sun. Inside was a letter the judge had given her that said the court had ordered strict department action, that guidelines for stops and searches were to be written with a woman's help and a vendor's help and a chauffeur's help. She did not know if it would live beyond the paper, but it had her name on the corner, and that meant if it failed, it would fail near her eye. On her way home, she took the long route. She passed the guest house. The guard looked small. He saluted for no one. A cat slept on a ledge and did not move. A man in a white car looked at his wrist and took off his watch, not because he feared her, but because he was going to go through security and mute his metal. It was a small thing, but it felt like a new sound in the city. Past midnight, when it was all quiet, she opened her window. Somewhere far off, a train pulled into a station and exhaled. Somewhere else, a woman laughed and then covered her mouth so she would not wake her children. The road below was dry. She touched her cheek. It had no memory in it now, only skin. She thought of the boy with the plastic dolls in the rain and the fruit seller's oranges running away like little sons. She thought of a hand with a silver band turning toward a phone and of another hand wearing a uniform forgetting that it was still human. She thought of a smaller hand holding a pen in court, writing slow because it wanted each letter to last, and of a judge plumbing a tired well and finding one bucket of clean water left. The city had not changed. It breathed the same. It lied the same. It yelled and sold and drove and slept the same. And yet, because one thing had been taken into a quiet room and made to stand in light, the night had loosened its grip by an inch. Sometimes that is how revenge looks when you're not trying to set fire to anything. Sometimes it is an inch that becomes a step that becomes a road, and if you're lucky or stubborn, that road holds long enough for another person to walk.